Okay, under affected subjects. One of the most important concepts to understanding the Choctaw language is that of the affected subject. We've examined agent subjects and affected objects, but what is an affected subject? The next line is something you might want to highlight. An affected subject is one that experiences something, is in some condition, or has some attribute. It doesn't, quote unquote, do anything. Affected subjects in the English are very often marked with a passive voice. Notice that the subjects of the following English sentences are not agents. They don't do anything. First example says, this old horse is tired. Tired is an adjective. It describes the condition of the subject. John was disappointed. Disappointed is describing the subject. The letter is very long. Long, also an adjective, telling about the letter. Notice also that the English pronouns in the following sentences have the same form whether or not the subjects are agents or are affected. And this was I was thinking I had given you that lesson on you, the English versus Choctaw. I did. And I gave that to you last Friday on the Choctaw U versus the English U. Okay, so that should be helpful to you in understanding this particular part where it says, notice also that in English pronouns in the following sentences have the same form whether or not the subjects are agents or are affected. I help my sister. I is an agent. I am sick. This is an affected subject. You didn't notice me. You is the agent. You are young. You is the affected. In Choctaw, if a subject is affected, it takes the affected person marker. This means that some subject markers have the same form as object markers. It also means that the English pronouns I, you, he, she, it, we, and they may be translated into Choctaw with different person agreement markers. I'm not going to read those examples just yet, but look at the paragraph that begins, how do we know? How do we know? How do we know whether the affected person marker refers to a subject or an object? The best way is to learn what form of subject each verb takes. All the verbs introduced so far have agent subjects. These are called the group 1 verbs, and we call these the action words. We call these the action words or active verbs. Virtually all adjectives have affected subjects. Predicate adjectives have affected subjects. And we're talking the pronouns now, not the noun phrases and nouns that are subjects of the sentence. We're talking pronouns that are subjects of the sentence. Sometimes the book isn't very clear on what it's talking about in making reference to subjects and the verbs. We're talking predicate adjectives. Predicate adjectives to me are what we call the group 1 verbs, or those that are going to show that something is having an effect on that subject. Group 1 verbs are the action words. This is where the agent marker is used, and this is where the subject pronoun is doing something, showing a type of physical action. But the group 2, it doesn't show you group 2 verbs except, now it doesn't even show you group 2 verbs, but it doesn't call it group 2 until later. But those predicate adjectives are considered group 2 verbs. I think it describes it a different way when we get into another chapter. It's in chapter 8 that we are seeing what is considered group 2 verbs, and those would be the predicate adjectives, something that's going to show that it has an effect on the subject. Okay, look over on page 71 real quickly. Page 71 real quickly. And this will help you get a better understanding of the affected subject. On page 71, next to the last paragraph where it says Choctaw verbs, it says Choctaw verbs that take affected subjects may be called group 2 verbs. Many of these verbs are not expressed in English with participles. Some of these verbs appear to take agent subjects in English. So make reference back to page 62. 62 and 71 are going to be what you need to see whenever you're thinking about affected subjects. Group 2 verbs, again, are those kind of in a passive sense, like to be clean, to be, it's going to take on the sense of to be. And that same thing can be applied to the adjectives, the predicate adjectives. Like the word chaha. Chaha would be to be tall. Tikahbe would be to be tired. Chito, to be big. So giving that understanding, the adjectives, the predicate adjectives will take an affected subject. Let's go ahead and read through the rest of the examples. Sachaha, satikahbi, or chitikahbiho. Chito, piho chafo, hachi haksi. In those examples, notice that there is no word that corresponds to the English be. Choctaw doesn't require a copula, meaning a form of be, for constructions such as these. So in looking at these, we have sa, chi, pi, hachi. All of these are the affected person markers. But in this instance, they can also be the subjects of the sentence. They will take a predicate adjective or other word that's going to revert back to the affected marker. Then we come again to how do we know whether the affected person marker refers to a subject or an object? The best way is to learn what form of subject each verb takes. And even more simple than that is, what is the subject of the sentence? When you find your subject of the sentence, it will be easier to determine what the predicate is and what type of predicate you have. And further down it says, virtually all adjectives have affected subjects. Study the following sentences and try to understand the concept underlying the form of the person markers. Chi apila lituk. Chi apila lituk. And when you are faced with something like this, always try to look for the subject. What is the subject of the sentence? Question yourself. What is the subject of the sentence? When you find the subject of the sentence, you can ask yourself, is the subject doing something? Is something having an effect on that subject? So here we have the word apila. The subject is li. Apila li. Apila li. And in this case, chi is going to be the object. Chi is going to be the direct object. Chichaha, you are tall. Chichaha. Chaha is an adjective and chi is an affected subject. On the following page, Ikhʋnapisa, you entered. Ikhʋnapisa, you entered. Choctaw is an agent subject. Ish is the subject. Choctaw is going to be that group 1 verb because you are using ish. Sometimes you can play one off the other. If you see a sentence that's using ish, you know it's going to have an active verb. There is no object in this sentence. Ikhʋnapisa. Ikhʋnapisa. Again, ish is going to be your clue that this is an agent. Ish is an agent marker. Ikhʋnapisa. Hapi is going to be your object. Hapi is your direct object. And if you'll keep in mind, on page 61, where it tells you that when both an affected marker and an agent marker appear in the same sentence, the agent marker will come first, followed by the affected marker. This is an example of that. Ikhʋnapisa. Pihochafo. Hochafo is an adjective. So you're going to use the affected marker for the subject. Pihochafo. Okay. Also wanted to bring out something else too. When you have the affected marker as a subject, let's use Chiapila. Okay, looking at these two, these are using chi and si. These are direct objects. Apila is going to take an agent. So if you were going to say you help, then you're going to use the marker ish. Ish apila. And if you're going to use I, then you would say apila li. Chi apila is saying help you. Ishapila is saying you help. So there's a difference in the marker that you're going to use. I had suggested that sometimes learners want to leave the agent markers behind when we pick up a new set of pronouns and use them as subjects of the sentence. You will not see chi or okay, let me write it this way. You will not see. the affected object marker and the affected subject marker in the same sentence. In other words, if you are using ish, you will use chi for the object. You won't be seeing chi as the subject and as an object in the same sentence. You will not see the affected marker as an object and as a subject in the same sentence. Something that's important to remember. Do y'all have any questions? I don't know what I did. I want you to make two sentences, one using an affected subject and one using an affected object with the C. Wrong place. One using an affected object, one using an affected subject. And same with your translations. Check your work before you send it in. So I'm going to go ahead and close class at this time. We will stay on the affected subject and look at how this is going to be used and better understood versus the affected object. And again, these are pronouns, the same pronouns that we've studied that's going to be used and we studied first as a direct object, and now we're looking at it as an affected subject. And the difficulty comes in mostly whenever we don't see the English subject pronoun changing, but the Choctaw changes. using the same markers that we used for the direct object. So there's a little bit of a, I won't say a conflict, but something that's going to be have to say, okay, this is this and this is this to get a better understanding of it and how it's used. So we'll stay on this another day. So mark your pages for, let's just go back to the affected subjects, page 61, and we'll just go over this again when we come back on Monday. Also want to remind you at this time that on the 14th, there will be no class on the 14th. That's Good Friday and Choctaw Nation is closed. So we'll come back and look at affected subjects on Monday, the 10th. Monday, April 10th, we'll come back and study the affected subjects and get a better understanding of it versus the direct object. So, do y'all have any questions at this time? Okay, I will see you all next week then. Chapin Salachiki. Mukuki.